most of the things worth having are the hard things. And not necessarily hard from a perspective of external hard. Some of the best things worth having are internal hard. Doing the internal work, looking in the proverbial mirrors, looking back in your past. So just because it's challenging internally doesn't mean it won't pay off and be worth it.
Value what you value. Cultivate that within yourself, and then surround yourself with people who value that, and it's all going to grow, and it's going to be a wonderful upward spiral of success. But if your environment is constantly negatively reinforcing who you aspire to be, you're going to be in so much trouble.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another episode of Next Level University, where we help you level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed yesterday's episode number 1555, the unsexy part about becoming more confident. Today, for episode number 1556, building self-worth can feel gross. Kind of gross. Dirty. It can feel strange, for sure. There was, we had a death in our family last week, and that obviously is a challenging time, especially when you're coaching a bunch of people and you have a bunch of stuff on your calendar that you're going to have to end up moving. And I moved a lot of stuff, and it was hard for me. It was hard for me to move a lot of things because I felt very guilty, and I felt, and I promise this will connect to self-worth, I just felt really guilty. I felt like I was letting people down. And there was one call I had that I probably could have done, but I just wasn't in it. I just was in a different place, and I didn't really feel like I was going to be able to add value. I didn't really feel like I was going to be able to be myself. And I messaged this person, and I sent them an email and a WhatsApp message. And I said, hey, I'm kind of going through something right now, and this is, just for context, this is what it is. And I just don't feel like I'm going to be my best self, and I'd really appreciate if we can reschedule. And I just rescheduled the meeting. I just canceled the meeting. And there was a part of me that felt really guilty about that. I didn't even give the person a chance to message me back and say, well, this is really the only time I can do it. It was almost like I was putting my needs above anybody else's, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think at times it can be a rare thing, depending on what your experience is out there. But that's why I wanted to do an episode on self-worth and how it can feel gross. Putting up boundaries around stuff like that is really good for my self-worth, because it's me saying I need to take care of myself, and I do a lot of stuff for clients and a lot of stuff for other people, and I've dedicated my life to that, and I'm grateful and privileged for the opportunity to do that. But I also need to make sure that I'm filling my own cup. And I've mentioned this before, where it's hard to say no, because when you say no, you potentially feel guilty about it. And then maybe you start questioning yourself of, well, could I have gone tonight? I probably could have gone and supported. Or could I have shown up at that place that I said I had a reason not to go to? I've mentioned before that when I'm supposed to do like a podcast, or I'm supposed to meet with someone and they're running 5 minutes late, I just leave. After 5 minutes, I leave. And that was one of the hardest things for me. I felt so bad. I would check my email to see if somebody emailed me. I just felt like I was letting people down. But I can tell you that has helped my self-worth so much, because I'm valuing my time, which is something I never did in the past. I would just wait until somebody showed up. It would have been a day later. I would just stayed on the meeting. And but it feels dirty. It can feel dirty to say, hey, and to send someone an email and say, hey, I waited for 10 minutes and nobody showed up. I have to go to my next thing. I can't just wait, because what we've seen statistically is when somebody is 5 minutes late for a 30-minute meeting, they're not coming. And we've learned over time that the better use of time is probably just for me to go do something else. So my intention, my goal in this episode is just to talk about how, if you feel like self-worth is something that you're struggling with, if you're really good at putting other people above yourself, if you struggle with setting boundaries, it can feel very gross, icky, dirty, guilty when you start setting boundaries, because for the first time in your life, potentially, at least this was my experience, for the first time in your life, you might be getting the feelings of the other side of what it's like to set boundaries, the other side of what it's like to potentially disappoint someone, and not disappointing yourself because you're knocking the boundaries down. That's really my goal in this episode.
I know that the last episode was about confidence, which is confidence and self-belief are very similar. And then this one's about self-esteem and self-worth. And I had a moment while you were talking about what is the root cause of low self-worth. And one of the things that came up for me was, I think that when we're young, I've often said this, I think young people struggle with self-worth. Not everybody, but a lot of them. So picture, let's go to high school. High school is a challenging time for most people. In high school, picture the all-star athlete. So everyone think of the all-star athlete in their high school. And if it was you, awesome. If it wasn't you, think of that person. In a way, it's almost like the high school overinflates that person's value. A little bit. A little bit. Their time is a little more valuable than other people's time. Everyone kind of wants to be their friend. That kind of thing. Especially
if it's in a big school that values sports a lot.
Exactly.
There are high schools in like Texas and places like that are bigger than colleges.
I know.
So I can imagine.
Okay, now think of one of those big Texas schools that values football, 10 out of 10. And then think of the all-star football player. You ever see Friday Night Lights?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Well, anyways, it's about a true story based on one of those big Texas schools. Now picture being a soccer player there. Soccer's not as valued. And so we all kind of, as kids, get valued differently based on what we're good at. I remember whenever I was with the gamers, I was super valued. I learned this lesson the hard way, actually. I was really, 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 really good at Halo, but I was really, 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 really not good at sports in high school. I was prepubescent, that kind of thing. But when I was with the gamers, I was like super valued. It was like a drastic contrast between like me in the high school lunchroom, kind of nerdy, not super valued, none of the girls wanted me, none of that, no attention, none of that, to when I was with the gamers, I was like, I don't want to say God. It was definitely not a God, but I was very valued, extremely valued. Like, whoa, like Alan's on my clan. I was a 19 or whatever, which is a level. There's levels in Halo 2, and back then level 19 was like one of the best in the world. Anyways, my point is that I think we get all messed up because I often joke, don't be a rapper at a country concert. Don't be a country singer at a rap concert kind of thing. You just happen to have an audience who loves country at a rap concert. It's not going to happen. So what happens is when we're kids, our value, our self-value, our self-worth is so tied. You ever meet like a young girl who hasn't really come into her beauty yet, and she thinks she's ugly, and she has such low self-worth? That is sad, because what if later on, what if you worked on it? What if you got fit? What if you were valued for your brain instead of your beauty? There's so many ways to be valuable, but we don't know what the hell we're doing when we're kids. And so some people happen to be rock star athletes at a rock star football, basketball school, and they happen to be inflated in their value. I remember when I was a freshman in high school, I was extremely undervalued, and in middle school I was overvalued. And then everyone hit puberty, and I didn't, and I looked like a little boy, and everyone else somehow had beards and were muscular men. I'm being playful, but genuinely I was like a little prepubescent, red-faced little boy. I was like 5'3" or something like that. Anyways, my point is that I remember thinking, like, I'm academic and I'm very smart, but that's not really valued. The teachers liked me a lot. I never got in trouble because they care about academics, but the other students didn't care at all. And so if you're out there watching or listening, if we're going to talk about self-worth, we got to talk about the truth. And the truth is we do base our self-worth a lot, too much, on what the world values of us. Kevin and I, we're very valued by our community. We're very valued by our podcast listeners. But there are people that do not give an F at all about any of the work you and I do, to a drastic extent.
The majority.
The majority. And that's really hard for me sometimes, because it's like, listen, I know you think I'm doing some pet project podcast and you think it's cute, but I'm a real business owner. And sometimes I just want to shake them and say, respect me. But that's not how it works. You need to take back control of your own goddamn self-worth. And that's all I'm saying is, if your husband or your wife is not valuing you, if your friends think what you're doing is stupid, you just need to get better friends. Because, and here's the irony, if your friends are being that way to you and you have low self-worth, you're probably going to stick around because it takes self-worth to actually leave. And so hopefully Kevin and I can help you speed this process up a little better than we did, because in hindsight, it's very clear that I didn't value myself nearly to the extent that I wish that I had, because not everybody likes math. Not everybody likes science. Not everybody likes computer engineering. Not everybody cares about personal development or personal growth. And if that's what I'm focused on being better at, and I'm around a bunch of people who avoid that, if anything, I'm going to be so undervalued. And I don't think that's a good thing for anybody. I think it's important to value what you value, cultivate that within yourself, and then surround yourself with people who value that, and it's all going to grow, and it's going to be a wonderful upward spiral of success. But if your environment is constantly negatively reinforcing who you aspire to be, you're going to be in so much trouble.
I would love, and I feel like it would be so powerful to have a study of where somebody's external worth was in high school versus where it ends up. Because we've talked before about, we went to high school and there were some very beautiful girls at our high school that everybody kind of found attractive. Mm-hmm. And things for a lot of them, and is this a coincidence? I don't know. But for a lot of them, things didn't go very positively later in life. And I wonder if it's because there was and we've talked about this before, there was so much emphasis put on the way they looked or whatever it may be, their bodies and how they developed, and they got an entitled view of themselves without actually ever having to do anything, quote unquote, versus maybe the opposite of somebody who was an underdog for their entire high school or academic career, who that maybe lights a fire under their butt, or it determines for them that they're unworthy of success. I'm super curious to how that would play out. I always talk about this on other shows. Think of two scenarios. Scenario A, scenario B. Scenario A, a child is born into this world, and their parents say, you're amazing, you're handsome, you're beautiful, you're talented, you can do anything you want, you're so valuable, you're loved here, you're safe here, the sky is the limit, your future is so bright, we'll support you no matter what. And then the opposite is, we regret that you were born, you're a waste of space, you're never going to amount to anything, you're ugly, nobody will ever love you. I'm willing to bet one of them is going to have high self-worth and the other is going to have low self-worth.
Yeah,
now,
definitely.
Is that an oversimplification? Probably, to a degree. But I imagine I've lived, when I used to live in sketchier areas than I do today, I remember hearing through the walls or through the floors the way people would talk to their kids, and it's like, that's not great. I think that kid's going to be in trouble. Mm-hmm. You're without knowing it, you're building this child's self-belief and self-worth without even knowing it.
Yeah.
And it's going to take years of conditioning to uncondition that, unfortunately.
Hi, my name is Tim Melanson, and I have a web development agency called Creative Crew Agency, and I'm also a podcast host of the Work at Home Rockstar podcast. I met Alan a little over a year ago. He was a guest on my podcast, and we had an epic conversation, and I was just really impressed with his work ethic. And so I decided to jump on board with him, and it's been a little over a year now. My business has grown, but more importantly, I feel much less stressed and much more purposeful with what I'm doing and the direction that I'm going. So I definitely highly recommend Alan. If you're looking for some accountability, if you're looking for some tools, then look him up, take him up on his consultation.
A fascinating study that I would love to do is replicate everything you just said, but figure out where they would be at 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years out. That would be so fascinating, because what I've found is some of the people with the lowest self-worth end up the most incredible, because they're actually compensating for not feeling loved. And in order to compensate, they try to go get better, and they try to serve, and they try to... I think some of the best people I've ever met are people that were shit on and tried to find a way to be better because of how poorly they were shit on or how much they were shit on. And then I know some other people that really were given a lot and told they were amazing, and they're very lazy now. And I'm not trying to be unkind. I just, they're definitely entitled. Yeah, I'm going to call a spade a spade. I know some people that are really entitled, and they have high self-worth, but they kind of rest on it. So I don't know. That's a philosophical discussion. I was definitely, I had both, but I would say my childhood was much, much more on the challenging end than most of the people that I'm referring to. And in hindsight, that actually ended up being a huge win. But I also know that's because I believed in myself. So I think the number one most important thing on planet Earth for a human being is self-belief. If you believe in your own bigger, better, brighter future, you will invest in it, and you will work toward it, and you will have a bigger, better, brighter future, statistically and probability speaking. But number two is self-worth, because you might get to the goals like I did and still not be setting boundaries, still not be valuing yourself, still not be saying no to the person's, places, things, and ideas that are toxic. That's really what it comes down to for me. I didn't start saying no to toxic persons, places, things, and ideas really until 26, after my car accident. And for the new listeners, I got in a tough car accident at 26, got me to question everything. And my father died in a car accident when he was 28. And so for me, this was real mortality motivation of that really could have been it. And I don't take that lightly. And so I just decided after that, I'm going to stop living a life that's not fulfilling. I'm going to stop living a life doing what others expect of me. And I'm going to start living a life aligned with my core values and what I value and who I am and who I aspire to be. And that was 9 years ago. So self-belief is number one, and you can build it. You can build it. You really can. You just got to start small, be humble, and keep promises to yourself. And then self-worth, you can build too. Same deal. Start small, keep promises to yourself, set boundaries, get away from toxic people.
It's just so deep, both of them. There's like the baseline, do these things to become more confident or to have more self-belief, to have more self-worth, self-esteem. But it really does, at the end of the day, so much of it is action. So much of it is action. And we always say accurate self-belief and accurate self-worth.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily aspire to have super high self-worth. I want it to be accurate. I want it to be based on reality.
Can you tell the story when it was inflated? That's funny.
Which one?
When you came back from...
Oh, yes. This
is the only time I've ever seen Kevin with inflated self-worth. It was funny.
It was...
And also devastating because I cried.
It was both. Alan and I went to a Brendan Burchard event, and I was so afraid to go to this event because I was thinking to myself, I'm not going to fit in, and everybody's going to judge me, and I don't belong here. And when we got there, I was like, this is my place. Everybody's having deep talks. Everybody wants to be hyper-conscious. Everybody's talking about their feelings and stuff. This is awesome. This is amazing. I fit in amazingly. So when we got home from that event, we were in the studio, which was Alan's sister's old bedroom at the time. And I definitely was over. I remember thinking I was the man. My poop didn't stink. I was king shit. I was
You
amazing.
were the bee's knees.
I was the bee's knees.
You had it all figured out.
Yeah. I was the man. I was at Brendan. I was at an event not 2 weeks ago. Do you have any idea who I am as a human? And Alan and I were talking, and Alan started crying, and I was like, what in the hell is going on, man? And then we had a very real talk about how he had doubted himself a little bit because of the event. He was going through his own stuff, and I felt like I was the man because I was just happy to be there and happy to have found my people.
Well, here's the thing. I didn't mean to interrupt you,
Right.
but this is I realize in hindsight some of our early stories are actually more powerful than I thought. So going to that event, Brendan Burchard, I went in knowing that I would fit in with a growth community, thinking that I was a strong speaker. And Brendan is a world-class speaker. World-class. Just decades, right? World-class. So I went in thinking I was a strong speaker and realized I was comparing to Brendan. And I was like, oh, I'm in trouble. I am not a strong speaker. Holy crap. So I came back with all the humble pie. Kevin, prior to the event, thought he wouldn't fit in, thought it was going to be terrible, thought he wasn't going to be good enough. And then he came back thinking he was the bee's knees. And so I came back devastated, for lack of better phrasing. My identity, was struggle bus, low self-worth. And he came back inflated. And I knew, and this is the deeper layer, I knew we were in trouble if it stayed that way. Because people with inflated self-worth, I just don't work well with them. I never have. I'm big on earning it. To me, the rent is due every day. I'm not entitled to be with Emilia. I have to work for that. I have to earn that every day. By the way, I respect her and treat her and honor her. And she sent me a text earlier crying about how I protected her sleep so well this year. Her Oura Ring says it's the best sleep she's ever gotten. And she literally was on the couch crying because I've protected and honored what she values more than anyone else has. And to me, if I get entitled and I start thinking I'm the man and I'm going to stop stop earning it. And I don't want to ever do that. So that was my deepest fear underneath that. That's why I was crying, because I was like, we are screwed. Not again,
I remember thinking, like, what the hell's going on here, man? Why are you crying all of a sudden?
Yeah.
I thought everything was fine.
I'm going to lose another friend,
Yeah, it's a challenging thing. Self-belief and self-worth are two of the most challenging things, because you have to do the uncomfortable thing. It's very hard to set boundaries if you've never done it before. It's very, very challenging to say no to things that you used to say yes to.
Oh,
very, very challenging. Brutal. Yeah, or to put yourself first. Self-belief and self-worth are a game of doing things, doing more positive things, and doing more constructive things and doing less destructive things for that thing. So it's getting up when you say you're going to get up and going and doing the thing that scares you. It's not going when you say you're not going to go. It's setting a boundary when you say you're going to set a boundary. It is one of the most challenging things in the world. It might seem simple in terms of steps, but one of the most challenging, but also one of the most beneficial. For sure. You deserve self-worth if you're willing to do the right things. And for all of us, it's a different journey, because the reason we have the level of self-belief and self-worth we do is based on stuff that's probably based on stuff that's happened to us, and everybody has a unique experience. So my next level nugget for this whole episode is most of the things worth having are the hard things, and not necessarily hard from a perspective of external hard. Some of the best things worth having are internal hard. Doing the internal work, looking in the proverbial mirrors, looking back in your past. So just because it's challenging internally doesn't mean it won't pay off and be worth it.
My next level nugget is self-belief and self-worth can be built. Self-belief is built from setting small, achievable daily goals and following through, and then assigning that to yourself. Self-worth is built from protecting your time, honoring your core values, setting boundaries, making sure people respect you, and if they don't, you sail away. And Kevin and I have been working hard to build both of those things. For 2024 will be our 7th year in business, and we want to help you do the same, because life is different. Life is different with self-belief and self-worth. It's not what it used to be. It's really much better. It's much better. But you have to keep showing up for yourself. You have to keep keeping the promises to yourself. You have to keep building confidence. It's a daily thing. It's not an overnight thing.
If you are looking for a place where people will value your boundaries and it'll help you build self-worth, join Next Level Nation. The link will be in the show notes. Tomorrow, for episode number 1557, 3 things to work on if you want to shift your identity. We're going in a direction, I guess, with this week's episodes. Not intentional, but I'm very excited for that one tomorrow. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, we do not have fans. We have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow.
Keep building your self-worth. Next Level Nation.